Hi everybody, my name is Brian Kwong from crowdfundingrockstars.com. Today's guest is Josh Lehrer, a professional photographer and the project creator of Becoming Visible on Kickstarter. And this project is the number 3 most funded project in the photography category. And he raised $35,348 for creating a large gallery show in New York City. And in this interview, he's going to share with us his experience with crowdfunding, what he learned, and how he did it. So here's Josh.
Well, first I just want to say it's terrific to meet you, and I really applaud your effort toward the notion of community building around creative projects. And for me, I mean, you had asked me in some of your questions how I got started on this particular project. And I can tell you that when the economy tanked in New York City and all over the world 3 years ago, and suddenly my the private commission portion of my business absolutely fell off of a cliff, I along with the rest of us emerging photographers, recognized that we were very low-hanging fruit in that economy. And but I very quickly reminded myself that as a creative person, I am not reliant on anyone to pay me or assign me or tell me that now it is time to go make things. If I identify as a creative person, I can create anytime I want.
Very good.
And yeah, of course, and I satisfy that aspect of myself by actually going and making stuff.
Yeah.
And I was very influenced by what was happening economically, but I knew that I was not the worst off. I knew that there were people in much worse predicaments than I found myself in. Yeah. And so in the spirit of finding out who those people were, I called the Homeless Services Office in the Department of Homeless Services in New York City. And without missing a beat, the man on the phone said, the hardest hit community is homeless transgender teenagers. A community that I really knew nothing about.
Me neither,
and
I saw your video.
Yeah. So I found out about him. Wow. He encouraged me to call a woman at the Department of Youth Services, and I called over there, and she also, without missing a beat, said, homeless trans teenagers. And I learned after some fact-finding missions that 35% of all homeless teenagers in New York City are trans, and that number is extraordinary given their percentage of the population.
Yeah.
I wanted to know where they were and in what way that they were being treated, what their experience was like. I called all 4 of the service centers in New York that are available to LGBT youth.
Yeah.
And Sylvia's Place is the one that I connected with. Sylvia's Place is an emergency drop-in homeless shelter. It's really where I think they set the bar the lowest because they're absolutely able to take anybody.
Yeah.
And they do not turn people away. And they're a magnificent organization as a result. And at the time, the man who ran the organization was a photographer named Lucky Michaels, who was also photo documenting this population, and he immediately understood what I wanted to do. Just on the phone, I said I want to make formal portraits that are ennobling and dignified and utilizing very old school material and come and shoot the kids. And he said, fantastic. And I had a meeting with them, I met the directors, we talked about how we would do it, what the process would be like. We agreed that they would screen the kids, and I would only get kids that were a little far along in the process, like not just off the bus from their abusive home in Atlanta, but had actually, sort of gotten a little settled in New York City. And as it turned out, that really wasn't the case. I got whoever, and for the first 18 months of the project, I set up a sort of ersatz photo studio on the 3rd floor of their shelter in Midtown Manhattan. Yeah. And what we did was we would just, haul up all of our gear, set up a studio. I shot them digitally many times to sort of get past the performative aspect of transgender, and then made formal film portraits of them. And then I spent the next eight or 9 months printing them as large format cyanotypes.
This was before Kickstarter.
before Kickstarter.
I see. Wow.
And so while we get, and I think it's an important question because one of the things that I think helped me realize success through my Kickstarter program is that my project was very far along.
Yeah.
By the time I launched my Kickstarter, I was fundraising for phase 2 of this project. So I had a very significant body of work to show.
Yeah.
I had 80 cyanotypes of homeless transgender teenagers and used those 80 and got a show at the Robert Miller Gallery in New York in the spring of last year.
Yeah.
And utilized the press surrounding that show and the sort of creative momentum of that experience to take it to the next level. And that really, I think, provided the momentum for the Kickstarter thing.
I got it. That's like a pre-launch work that you put in before.
Anyone who wants to do anything on Kickstarter really needs to demonstrate that their project will be fulfilled.
Totally.
You know, people are more likely to sign up in support of a project that they know in their hearts is going to be realized.
Yeah, I got that. People have got to have confidence in you that you can make it happen. You know, we can talk all we want, right? But
yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, my thought after listening to your story, it's really interesting where being creative, where it would take you.
Right.
You know, like, you know, it could have been anywhere, but it led you along to this path, and it's really interesting.
Well, for me, if you had asked me 3 years ago if I would be taking a huge portion of my energy, my life, my resources toward the support and care of homeless trans kids, I wouldn't really have known what you were talking about.
Yeah.
I really think that a creative spirit must really go where we got to follow our instincts and follow our. Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right.
Okay, so I got that. So you had a lot of work done. You had 80 kids, and you had a show already. So then you're networking at the same time, building a community around that, right? So so now you want to do Kickstarter. So how do you figure out like how long your campaign is, how much funding you want, and also the rewards levels?
Right. Well, I learned a lot from the first phase of the project. I learned how much my film and processing costs. I learned how many parking tickets I could anticipate as a result of shooting in this way. I learned how many volunteer assistance versus paid assistance I would incur.
Yeah.
I learned a lot about the expense of the chemistry, the expense of the process, and the materials involved. So I made a budget for what my next attempt was, which was a combination of both pushing the boundaries of photographic science and a combination of digital technology and very, very old school film printing techniques, and raising social awareness to what I viewed as an epidemic in New York City.
Yeah.
And that combination of things allowed me to kind of tell a narrative that made sense to me and that I had hoped would be attractive to potential funders.
Yeah.
So I made that video and I reached out for help, which is, I think like the first piece of advice I want to say to anybody who's making a Kickstarter program is if you're not a videographer, if you're not a really good editor, get some help. And I had friends of mine who are tremendous writers review my text.
Yeah.
I had a tremendous editor help me piece that video together, and knowing that that would be my primary sales tool.
Yeah.
And so I asked for a lot of help, and I got it. And I think that was the beginning of the surprise element of Kickstarter, and who I can't say enough about. Because I think what surprised me, I went to Kickstarter hoping to raise money.
Yeah.
And I did, which was great.
Yeah.
But what I also got, which is a tertiary benefit that I didn't anticipate, is I got this tremendous community around the notion of this project, both for both aspects, from pushing the boundaries of photographic science
Yeah.
and a great deal of awareness about trans teens.
Yeah.
Most of my funders are at very low funding levels. I got a lot of $1 funders, I got a lot of $10 funders,
Yeah.
and those guys became motivated to kind of spread the word about my project. So they hopped on their own social networking and spread the word.
Got it.
And within very short order, project itself was being promoted in university blogs and school papers, and it just got picked up.
Yeah.
And that was great. And that was through very little effort on my part. Mostly my own network kind of fanned out in that way. And the trans kids that I'd shot, you know, we're all friends on Facebook. They all responded very positively to it as well. And you know, I call the project Becoming Visible because these kids really yearn for visibility. They want to be seen, but they really, really need to be seen because there's a profound lack of funding available to help them.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Hey, can we back up a little bit because your video is very, very catching. When I first, usually the videos are maybe 2-3 minutes, right? And when I saw your video, I'm like, oh, 4 minutes. Okay, let's just play. And then it kept me engaged for the whole length of the video. So please tell me about the creation of the video, because as you said, it's a very important piece of the Kickstarter project. Yeah.
Well, I think like any good piece of anything, it begins with a well-written narrative. And you know, I'm not a great writer. If I could write, I wouldn't haul around all this photo gear all the time. So I was reliant on other people helping me write the piece. But I did a couple drafts of the script. They were all way, way, way too long. You know, because as you can tell, I like to talk about this project and I can talk ad nauseum about it. But I had friends who helped me edit it.
Yeah.
And the folks at Kickstarter are very helpful with this part of the process. Like I sent them drafts of the script, they were like way too long, way too long. And so by the time I cut it, we got to about 4 minutes, and I tried to shave it after that, but really couldn't tell the whole story any shorter. I just wanted to animate it with stills. You know, I didn't necessarily think that for my purposes, me as a talking head was going to be so great. I think for other people it's very effective, but for me it wasn't. That wasn't really where it was going to be. I think the power would be in showing a lot of the previous imagery itself. So that was really the genesis of the video, and then I went into a friend of mine who has a beautiful recording studio, and I just read the thing myself. And
so back up a little bit, because you said you wrote that thing and then you had help. So I want to get a little bit of mindset. What did you want to communicate in that video? Because that's where all your narrative came from. There's something that you want to communicate in that video that's powerful, so that people can hop along, right?
Right.
On the ride.
Well, for me, it was really about underlining the fact that this notion of creating a platform where these teenagers' experience could become visible was really the driving force behind the creation of the narrative. And so everything really stemmed from that one idea.
I got it, yeah.
And I think my series, you know, the series itself has a strong title, and so all the other, like the more boring stuff about photographic science, I needed to tweak it to gear toward that.
Yeah.
This notion of visibility for these kids. So I think that was the formation or the motivating factor toward the formation of that video.
Yeah, that's where the source, that's where it came from. I see. That's where the
is.
That's very clear.
So.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I'm glad it translated, because really, honestly, I had no idea how this would go.
I think nobody knows until you press the launch button.
Exactly. And asking for $30,000 was a big risk, and the folks at Kickstarter don't necessarily advise going that high.
Yeah.
Because you know, they're very aware of their success rate, and I was asking for a lot of money.
Yeah. So okay, so you got the video down, and so how did you pick up your rewards level? Do you have any plan or strategy about like where to price it at, and did you have a thought like?
Well, Kickstarter was very wise in encouraging me to develop a really cool gift for so people could come in at a very low level.
So all this time you communicate with Kickstarter.
They were extremely helpful
So
and useful.
did you reach out to them, or they reach out to you and say you do this, do this, or what?
Honestly, I don't exactly remember how the contact started, but I knew that I was in very close contact with them while it was in formation. Like I'd shoot them an idea, and they'd email me back pretty quickly, generally within the same day, and saying, you don't have enough reward level at your $1 and your $5 and your $10 guys. So make sure that you take care of those guys. And so I had to come up with a gift for them, and the $1 guys got a postage stamp with a photo of the series.
Yeah.
And by the way, that $1 gift cost me 80 cents. So it almost washed the value of that gift.
Yeah.
But the gift itself motivated those kids who came in at $1 were motivated to spread the word about the project. So it definitely reaped a tremendous reward.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful to Kickstarter for encouraging me to create a reward at those lower levels.
Wow.
Because of course, I'm raising $30,000. I just want guys to come in with $5,000.
Wow. Wow.
That's not realistic. So I had to keep it real, and they and through their encouragement, I did, and that was very helpful.
Wow, that's really cool. So you have $1, you have $6, and $100.
I had the reward levels. It was a while ago. I don't remember.
It's okay. So you have $1, and then $6, and $100, and then $250.
Yeah.
So those if you didn't talk to Kickstarter, it was probably started at 100, huh?
I think so. I think I was like, here's a reward for $100. But, I think I had something a little lower, but it wasn't as low as $1. I didn't have a reward for $1, and I was so grateful that they did that. And it was pretty easy to make personalized stamps, and so that came out pretty well. And I had a game plan to make smaller prints, and I knew that I had shows coming up from the previous body of work, so I could include higher level of donors to post-show dinners for those shows and stuff like that. And that became a tremendous way of generating enthusiasm for the thing.
I got it. And so you got. And how long was your campaign? Do you remember? 30 days or?
30 days.
30 days.
Yes.
Okay.
Kickstarter encouraged me to condense my fundraising period. They said, in our experience, if you don't get it within 30 days, you're not going to get it.
Got it.
So my advice about that, by the way, I think that's smart because it really focuses my energy, and it's kind of hard to get other things done while you're fundraising at that level.
Yeah.
So keeping it to 30 days was, for me, a wise move because I was not marketing any of my commercial photography. I really wasn't doing any of the, maintaining any other aspect of my business other than intensely focused on this Kickstarter thing.
Yeah.
And one thing that I can say that helped me a lot and gave me some peace of mind as I was going is I had some big pocket people who were definitely interested in supporting me, and I asked them to wait and not kick in until the very end. So I had some peace of mind as I was going that there was about 10 people who were going to kick in a significant chunk of money that could conceivably get me over the top while I was still tweeting my brains out, Facebooking it like crazy, and shooting out notices on Tumblr, and also asking other bloggers, sending versions of the video to other bloggers and asking them to please include it or promote it and talk about it.
Great. So that's perfect. That's where leading into the promoting of the project, right?
Uh-huh.
Did you have a plan before you launched? Because you have your work that you built, the community you built with kids, and also the show. What plan did you have before you launched?
I gotta tell you, I was flying by the seat of my pants. I really didn't have that much of a plan. I had a lot of faith, but I didn't have much of a plan. Like I knew, I don't know, I had faith in the project. I had a belief that, that, you know, I cared about it so much that other people would care too. And I think that was probably unwise, and if I were to do it all over again, I would definitely put a lot of funders in place prior to launching.
Yeah.
But I just kept going.
But I can understand that because you already had some success. I mean, you can see the reaction from the show at, you know, that you had. So you kind of had a sense. It's not like a brand new project that no one heard about.
Right.
That, I think that's a little bit different. So
right, sure.
You had some definitely some positive feedback from the show, from all the work that you did. So I can get that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me a little about, because you talk about Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, other bloggers. Did you just email them, or what? How? What? So the project's launched. So now what?
Right. Once I was launched, I immediately got it on my all the aforementioned social networking sites.
Yeah.
I also was the show itself at Robert Miller had been blogged about and talked about, and I reached back out to those people saying, you know, I'm launching this other thing. Can you talk about it? And I got some great responses from those people. You know, they're as eager for content as anyone else.
Yeah.
So I could give them this 4-minute thing, which looked pretty good,
yeah.
and a lot of them did respond and kind of blast it out. So most of my funders are people that I had never encountered before. Most of my funders were off of my network and new to me as a result of these other bloggers kind of taking up the cause.
Got it.
And that was really tremendously valuable to me. And I don't think it would have succeeded otherwise, honestly. So I reached out to them, you know, as kindly as possible, you know, really kind of begging them to help participate.
Got it. And then,
yeah.
And then they did, and they spread the word. And so did you? Because I know that in the dashboard, it will tell you like where the funds came from.
Right.
Do you remember the little bit?
Oh, I check that thing every 15 minutes. I was looking at that like crazy.
So what was the breakdown? Where did the funds come from?
Mostly New York, and but I think about 50% New York and 50% the rest of the country. And I think about 20% of my funders were people that I knew, and 80% were brand new to me. I think people were moved by the phenomenon of trans homelessness, and also there's become a kind of cultural recognition of the fact that transgender acceptance is really the last, like, feels like the final frontier in civil rights in our country. And so that I was helped by that fact, because there is a tremendous cultural shift occurring right now. And you know, as much as you know, as much headway as the gay rights movement has made, it does not, that does not include trans kids. And their exclusion is really highlighted by a lot of the momentum in the gay rights movement.
I see. Okay. So let's see. So any lessons learned you wanna share with me about promoting the project during the time?
I think that it is incredibly valuable to let your network know prior to launching that you're about to launch this thing.
Yeah.
And say, I'm about to launch this thing, and in a week you're going to get an email about it, and I really, really want your support. Yeah. And please blast this out to your network as well. And I think it's imperative, and I know that us creatives have a resistance to ask for help, but we have a kind of independent can-do spirit. Often I can do this whole thing myself. Yeah. But I think, you know, in this case, our ego is not our amigo, and we must get past that stuff and really ask for help. And you know, I knew I needed it. Like, it's important to say, like, as much as my Kickstarter thing was very successful, my entire, you know, I raised $35,000 through Kickstarter. Yeah. My entire budget for this project is $147,000. So I just raised a very, very small percentage of it through Kickstarter, but that funding success does attract other funders.
Yeah.
So it does allow me to include that language in my grant proposals and other kinds of outreach that I do. But in terms of launching, I think you've got to line up as much support as you can prior to pushing that button saying, like, today is the day I start. Because it can be very nerve-wracking when you have 15 days left and you're only 10% into your goal.
Yeah.
And that was my experience. Really most of my money came in at the very end. And that was a product, I think, of people waiting to see where it was going.
Yeah.
And also the momentum that was building. And I wish, for my own sort of sanity's sake, that I had put those items in place prior to launching. I think I got lucky because of those cultural shifts that we discussed and the fact that other people became interested in it.
Yeah.
But I would have gone a little less nuts at the end had I laid that groundwork a little earlier.
A little earlier. That's what you would do. That's what you would do if you do it again.
If I were to do it all over
again.
I would have definitely alerted my entire posse.
Everybody, the world.
Yeah.
So may I ask, like, how big is your network before you start? Like, do you remember approximately how many Facebook friend or Twitter do you have?
I don't have that many followers on Twitter, but I think the few that I have are pretty influential. And I'm not a big blogger. I don't update that stuff very frequently. I'm just not so good at it. But I have a very large Facebook network. I think I'm in the, I don't know. I guess by Facebook standards, it's not that high. I have like maybe 800 friends. But so that's not, it's not crazy, but it's big.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to know.
Yeah, but I think those people became motivated to tell other people. And so that, I got a lot of reposts. So that's really, I think, where it happened.
And how often do you do, because these social network, we can't abuse it. Like, like every day we go like, give me money, or help me. It doesn't work that way, right?
Right.
You can't piss people off. So how did you do it? Or did you really just do it every day?
No, I didn't do it every day. I sent out blasts to everyone about once or twice a week.
Yeah.
And, sorry for that phone call. Let's just ignore it, buddy. And so I'll back up and tell you this again. I sent out updates about every week. I would do a massive blast every week.
Yeah.
Letting everybody on Facebook and Twitter and Tumblr know where I was at in my fundraising goal, how many days I had left to go.
Yeah.
I also think that it was very valuable to continually update the people who had already agreed to fund the project.
Yeah.
Like, keep them in the loop, aligning them and using them as the allies that they'd become. Once they'd signed on for $1 or $10 or $25, they were now friends of the project. Yeah. And I think by making a commitment to it, that they had something invested in the project's success.
They wanted to be successful too.
Sure. So asking for help from them was valuable.
Interesting.
Yeah.
These are very good tips, Josh.
Cool. I'm glad.
Okay. And so how did it feel when the project's over and you got 35,000?
It was a tremendous relief. Just a tremendous relief. Because the concern, literally, it was up until the 11th hour. And then I had one guy who had committed to a good chunk of money, and I had to call him. I was like, fine, I just had to call him directly. We'd been emailing him saying, I'm definitely in for a big chunk of money. I finally had to call on the last day and say, now is the time. And some of the big guys, who had committed, they needed to be kind of walked through the process, because to contribute to Kickstarter, you must have an Amazon account. And so a lot of these guys didn't have Amazon accounts. Wow. And a lot of these guys wanted to make a tax-deductible donation, but that's not allowable through Kickstarter. So they had to kind of they had to be educated through that a little bit.
You gotta walk them through.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so some of them I was literally on the phone going, okay, go to Amazon.com, go to create an account. Here's your name, make a password, enter your credit card number, and they required that kind of walking through. But for the big donors, that was essential. And so that was the end. That was the last day. But I got to say, by the then it really tipped over. Then once I was over $30,000, and then suddenly all these people came in at the 11th hour, and I raised, I think, 37 and change. So that was cool.
Wow.
By the way, how did you find out that I'd become a Kickstarter all-star?
Because, well, I made up the all-star thing myself, by the way.
Well done. Thank you. I like it.
So you're all-star. So basically, you just go on the Discovery project, and then you click on the category on the right, and then once you click on one category, it will say new project or popular, noteworthy, and on the bottom it will say most funded.
Great.
So and it will say click more to find out more, and then I clicked on it, and then it will lined up, it doesn't number it, but it just have all in order how much in that category.
Tremendous. I love that. I got to go look at it because one of the greatest benefit of all, and this is to me much more beneficial than the actual money, was the community that developed around the notion of my project. Because I think so many, particularly photographic artists and many visual artists, we work in isolation, and it's a lonely process. So suddenly to have this very large group of people surrounding my project and kind of invested in it gave me a lot of momentum to keep going. And it's not an easy community to deal with. The stories are very, very sad. These are bewildered, lost kids, and for me, it's taxing psychologically, and it's hard not to become over-invested in their personal lives, and it's also, I walk a fine line between really wanting to help this community and also not wanting to exploit them, but actually exploiting them, because I'm using their image to promote not just the cause of the lack of visibility in the transgender community, but it's also furthering my own photographic career. So it's I walk a very fine line, and so when you were asking in one of your questions, you were saying like, what's next? Now for the next phase of this project, we've been all fall hosting the homeless transgender support group here at my studio. And because I'm keenly cognizant of the fact that this notion of creating visibility for them in gallery shows and to like sort of the blue chip art crowd is going to be valuable down the road.
Yeah.
But it does not necessarily serve these kids today. And these kids are giving me a lot, because by participating in this project, they're outing themselves as homeless, as trans, and they don't, they're giving me a great deal. And so I must take care of them.
Yeah.
So in addition to, whatever cash payment and free gift cards and meal cards and coupons they get in exchange for participating in the project, we really needed to make that support group something a little bit more legitimate. Yeah. So we brought people from the Transgender Legal Defense Fund, the Name Change Project, people who coach kids through resume building, to really provide a service that would be useful to the kids today.
Yeah.
Because I got, on some of the blogs, I caught a lot of hell for exploiting these kids, and it hurt my feelings because I don't want to exploit them. I want to help.
Yeah.
And so we really did create programming that was valuable to the kids who are participating in the project today.
Wow. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
I acknowledge you for doing that. That's just so awesome. I'm touched.
Thanks, man.
By what you shared just now.
Thank you.
I mean, how do I say this? Yeah, I mean, I believe that we can always create a situation that where we can all benefit.
For sure.
And that's what you did.
Well, we're in this life together.
Yeah,
and
we're human beings.
yeah, so it's important, and so I think in terms of what you're up to with your website, creating a creating communities around creative endeavors is essential, not just for the endeavor's success, but for our community and culture as we continue to move forward, because we're going into a future that we can't envision, and the one way that we can actually positively impact that is to really bring our whole selves into that new community. And it's with linking up with other people who have similar ideas that that the ideas themselves become more powerful.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
So you share. So you share a little bit about what's next for you. Oh, before we go deeper into that, can you share maybe the last few takeaways about Kickstarter, that if there's anything that you want to add for people who are about, especially photography, because I know you're a professional photographer, and at the same time I know there's also a lot of people who love photography, but at the same time they can't really do it professionally. Mm-hmm. And I'm actually looking into, I picked this category because I know they love photography and they would love to be able to make a living doing this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I see Kickstarter as a platform to possibly support them. Right? So what would you suggest to other photographers in...
My favorite teacher, Jerry Vizuzzo at the International Center of Photography, would say almost as a mantra to all of his students, get a project. Just get a project. And I think that when all else fails, when the phone is not ringing, and when the big advertising jobs are not falling off the trees and landing in my lap, I have my project to fall back on, to remind myself that I'm a photographer, I'm an artist, and I have this thing. And so my advice to anyone, any emerging photographer that wants to launch anything on Kickstarter or even launch their own career, it is essential just for the creative process and for their own artistic exploration to have a really clear project. And whatever that is, it ultimately doesn't matter. But if it turns out that it's something that's potentially fundable on Kickstarter, then great. But I know that it must stem from a project, and I think for an emerging photographer that wants to launch something on Kickstarter, I think it's good to have very, very clear goals of what you're going to do with that money. Like what is that money for? And because I've seen people launch projects that are slightly amorphous, and that's not going to attract funding. What's going to attract funding is, if I'm doing a project on bridge building in America, and I know I need a certain piece of equipment in order to grab that image in a way that I want, I need to be able to show an example of what that's going to look like, what that equipment is, and exactly how much it's going to cost. And this is why I'm raising that money. I think the greater clarity that we can bring to the project itself, the more likely it is that people are going to be able to align themselves with funding it.
Got it. So you need a project and a very clear details of what is it that you want to do, and other people can see it.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't think it always has to have social underpinnings like mine does, although I think I benefited tremendously from that fact. Yeah. I do think clarity is essential.
Okay, great. So Josh, what's going on with your project now? I know you said you're holding galleries and shows. So what's next for you? Where are you at?
We just did that. We spent the entire fall capturing a bunch of stuff. Like one of the first things I did when the Kickstarter money came is I bought a very old camera. I bought a 1944 speed graphic camera.
That one behind you?
That's there.
So awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome. And we retrofitted an it's a Petzval lens from 1839, which renders extremely old school looking focus fall off portraits. The Petzval lens was designed as the very first portrait lens, and what I'll do is I'll send you some JPEGs of it in case you want to include it as stuff. And so we've been capturing, and now we're going to spend January making digital negatives, very large digital negatives of that, of the scans from that 4x5 film, and then we're going to print them as gum bichromate over cyanotype, which is hand-painted emulsion on watercolor paper. It was popularized in the early part of the last century by, photographic geniuses like Steichen and Stieglitz, and it makes for very painterly looking, very elegant prints that kind of walk that vague area between painting and photography. And so that's what we'll be spending the time, like literally like painting big pieces of watercolor paper, drying it with a hairdryer, contact printing it, and making pictures.
Wow.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Having fun? Yeah, I can see it. You're like telling me, you're like, oh yeah, let's do that.
I'm jazzed, man. It's gonna be a really fun start to the year.
I can tell.
Which is another benefit, by the way, of having a project. Like I'm not waiting for some art director to call me and tell me the stuff.
Yeah.
I got it.
You created yourself.
Yeah, it's like, I think any artist will tell you that they wrote their own ticket. We all have to write our own tickets. No one is writing it for us.
That's right. We all gotta write our own tickets. I'm with that. Cool. All right, so that's all I got. That's all. I think I got everything. That's
awesome.
Thank you so much for your time. I learned a lot.
It's great to talk to you, man. Yeah, really good to talk to you.